I got the divorce papers by email while I was still in the desert. 13 years of marriage ended in a PDF attachment. No tears, no calls, just a subject line that read, "Let's be adults about this." My name is Nathan. I'm 42 years old, a staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne. At the time, I'd been stationed in Kandahar for 4 months when Becky, my wife, the woman I thought I'd grow old with, decided she was done waiting. The email was brief. 3 cold sentences. She had filed the paperwork. She had emptied our joint accounts. She had moved her new boyfriend, Jeremy, into our house in Spokane. I read the message twice, closed the laptop, took a shower in the communal stall, got dressed for my shift, spoke to no one. That night, back at my bunk, I replied with one word: understood. No argument, no pleading, no drama. Wilson, my bunkmate, glanced up from his book and asked, "You good, man?" "Yeah," I lied, "just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military men know when to leave things alone. The truth? I wasn't surprised. 6 months before deployment, Becky had started to change. Little things at first. She stopped asking about my day, began working late at the dental office where she answered phones, started going to the gym, but her body never seemed sore. New friends I never met, new clothes, new passwords. I didn't accuse her, didn't snoop through her phone. That's not who I am, but I'm not blind either. So I took quiet measures, not out of paranoia, out of instinct. I secured our vital documents in a small storage unit across town. My birth certificate, our marriage license, the deed to the house, only in my name thanks to the VA loan. I stored my grandfather's watch and my mother's silverware there too. I also opened a separate account at a different bank and started diverting a small portion of my pay. Not enough for her to notice, just enough that, if everything fell apart, I wouldn't be starting from zero. The night before I deployed, Becky hugged me at the airport. "Stay safe, okay?" she said. Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a colleague, not a husband heading into war. I should have known. Part of me did, but I still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. 2 weeks after that email, I was sitting in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Another withdrawal. $8,500. I set down my fork, opened the app. Our joint account balance, $212.37. Our savings, zero. The $47,000 we had spent years saving was gone. Murphy, another guy in my unit, looked over. "Bad news?" I locked my phone. "Nah, just some account stuff." That night, I called the bank from the base phone center. The rep confirmed what I feared. Becky had been draining our accounts for weeks. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big withdrawals started the day after I left for Afghanistan. I hung up and stood alone in the hallway, watching other soldiers laugh on the phone with their kids, their wives, their parents, watching life continue. Mine had just collapsed. That's when Wilson found me again. "Heard from Alvarez you looked like a ghost at dinner," he said. "What's up?" I didn't usually share personal stuff, but Wilson once pulled me out of a bad situation in Kandahar. I trusted him. "My wife emptied our accounts," I said. "Moved her boyfriend into our house. Sent the divorce papers while I was on patrol last week." Wilson didn't flinch. No cliches, no sympathy speech. Just a calm question. "What's your plan?" That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop, logged into our home security system, something Becky probably forgot I could still access. A familiar driveway appeared on the screen, but what I saw was foreign. A strange truck parked out front. A man I'd never seen before, walking our dog, drinking from my coffee mug, wearing my Seahawk sweatshirt. And there she was, Becky, laughing in the kitchen I had renovated with my own hands during my last leave. Something inside me shifted. Not rage, not sorrow, something colder, sharper. Focus. I pulled out my phone and began a list. Call James, my army buddy turned lawyer. Check the VA loan terms. Contact Master Sergeant about emergency leave. Review home refinance paperwork, something Becky had mentioned in passing months ago. Secure my pension account access. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about strategy. At 500 before the next shift, I sent an email to James. Subject line, need legal help, discreet and urgent. 1 hour later, he replied, call me. Secure line only. When I hung up from that call, I knew exactly what needed to be done. No confrontation, no yelling, no begging. Just watch. Wait. Let her own actions become her trap. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Becky I was coming home. No texts, no calls. I checked into a cheap motel under a different name and met James at a small diner, 10 miles outside Spokane. You look like hell, he said, sliding into the booth. Feel like it too. He handed me a folder. Everything we'd discussed. The house deed, bank statements, loan documents, and something more. A refinance application. My name, my signature. Except, it wasn't my signature. Not really. The middle initial was wrong. The stroke pattern wasn't mine. She forged this? I asked. James nodded. 3 months ago, pulled out $30,000 using the home's equity. She listed Jeremy as a co-applicant. He paused, then added, Jeremy has a record, 2 DUIs and a fraud conviction in 2019. I took a deep breath. She forged my signature, took out a loan against our house, emptied the accounts, filed for divorce, all while I was deployed. Busy woman, James muttered. It gets better, he added. Jeremy's not just some random boyfriend. He's done this before. The next day, I went to the bank. I met with the loan officer who'd processed the refinance, showed him my military ID, my real signature. Then I showed him the forged documents. His face drained of color. I'll need to report this immediately. I understand, I said. I've already filed a police report. That night, Becky texted me. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Jeremy said someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. The next morning, I filed a formal contest of the refinance due to fraud. Placed a notice with the county clerk. No changes to the property could be made without my presence. 2 days later, Becky called. Voicemail. Nathan, we need to talk. The bank's asking about the house. If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults. Those same words, like adults. The same phrase from her original email. Still, I said nothing. That afternoon, James called. They froze the refinance funds. But there's more. Go on. Jeremy got pulled over. Driving your truck. Suspended license from the DUIs. It's been impounded. Good. And, James added, there were prescription pads in the truck from the dental office where Becky works. Blank? No, written prescriptions. The police are investigating. I sat on the edge of my motel bed. This was spiraling, bigger than I imagined. Part of me wanted to warn her, old habits. But then I remembered the footage. Jeremy in my sweatshirt, my coffee mug, my dog, laughing. She wasn't in trouble. She had chosen her side. So had I. The following morning, I met with the bank's fraud investigator, a man named Thompson, mid-50s, worn-down suit, coffee stain on his tie. The kind of man who'd seen too much and stopped being surprised by anything. "This kind of thing happens more than people realize," he muttered as he spread documents across his desk. "Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity." "What happens now?" I asked. "We've frozen the refinance account, but there's a problem. Some of the money is already gone." "How much?" "About half, $14,600. I leaned forward. "Where did it go?" Thompson hesitated. "Technically, I'm not supposed to share that without a subpoena." I looked him in the eyes. "My house, my name forged, my money stolen." He paused, then slowly turned his monitor toward me. "These are the outgoing transfers." I scanned the list, name after name. Then one caught my eye. Daniel Spencer. Not Jeremy. Someone else entirely. "Who's Daniel Spencer?" I asked. "Real estate agent," Thompson said. "Specializes in quick sales, cash deals. You should have your lawyer look into him." I called James as soon as I left the bank. "Daniel Spencer," he repeated. "Give me an hour." He called back sooner than that. "Got it. Spencer's a real estate broker. Spokane local. He's done business with Jeremy Ryan before. 3 home sales in the last 2 years." I sat on a bench across from the courthouse, stunned. So Becky wasn't just leaving me for some guy. This was coordinated? "Could be," James said carefully. "I did a deeper dive on Jeremy. There's a pattern. He gets involved with women during or after divorce, or while their spouses are deployed. In each case, the house gets sold, fast, under market value, to one of Spencer's clients. Jeremy gets a cut. Then he moves on." My hands clenched. Do we know if Becky knew? Hard to say. Maybe she's a pawn. Maybe she's a partner. I let out a breath. What now? I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. This involves military personnel, crosses state lines, and potentially VA loan fraud. They're interested. That night, I sat in my motel room with a beer in hand, watching security camera footage of strangers in my living room, speaking in voices that assumed I was miles away and never coming back. Becky texted again. "Nathan, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud. Jeremy got arrested. I don't understand what's happening." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed 4 words. "Who is Daniel Spencer?" 3 dots. She started typing, then stopped. Started again. Stopped. Finally, "It's not what you think." I powered off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, James called. "The FBI wants to meet. Turns out they've been investigating Spencer and Jeremy for months. You might be the case that ties it all together." For the first time since Kandahar, since that PDF landed like a grenade in my inbox, I felt something close to relief. Not because the marriage was over, but because the truth was beginning to breathe. I met with FBI agents Patel and Donovan at their Spokane field office. They recorded my statement, copied every document James and I had collected. "Your case helps establish a pattern," Patel said. "Multiple victims, clear coordination. This becomes a conspiracy, no longer isolated fraud." "What about Becky?" I asked. "My wife, ex-wife, I guess." The agents exchanged a look. "We're still determining her level of involvement," Donovan said. "Did she ever mention needing to sell the house? Financial pressure?" "She kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize, but our mortgage was manageable on my salary." "When did she start saying that?" "About 6 months ago, around when she probably met Jeremy." "Did she ever talk to you about refinancing?" "Never. She forged my signature. They kept asking. I kept answering. When we were done, Patel handed me her card. Don't confront her. Don't confront Ryan. Let us build this carefully. I nodded. Understood. That evening, I drove back to our neighborhood. Parked a few houses down. Jeremy's truck was back. Must have been released from impound. Becky's car was gone. Then my phone buzzed. Text message. We need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow. Please, I'll put the money back. I showed it to James over breakfast. Don't go, he said. Nothing good comes from meeting her now. I won't, I replied, but I want to know what she's doing while she thinks I'm waiting at the park. At 9:45 a.m., we parked across from the house. At 10 a.m., Becky left, driving toward Riverfront Park. 10 minutes later, a car pulled up. Real estate logo on the door. Daniel Spencer. Jeremy walked out to greet him. They shook hands, then walked into my home. James tensed. Should we go in? No need, I said, pulling out my phone. The cameras inside upload to the cloud. You didn't mention interior cams. Never came up. I opened the live feed and turned it toward him. Inside, Spencer and Jeremy stood in my living room. Spencer was taking photos. Jeremy pointed out features, like a listing agent showing off his latest flip. We should list by the end of the week, Spencer said. Got a buyer lined up already. Cash offer as usual. How much? Jeremy asked. List at 470. Get 420. Everybody walks away happy. What about the husband? Military guys always bark. But they've got deployments, duties. He'll settle. They all do. I turned to James. You getting this? He was already recording the screen. I forwarded the feed to Agent Patel. Subject, happening now. 30 minutes later, unmarked vehicles surrounded the house. FBI agents moved in. From down the street, I watched as Jeremy Ryan and Daniel Spencer were led out in handcuffs. As the FBI led Jeremy and Spencer out in cuffs, I watched from down the block. My phone rang. Agent Patel. We got them on tape discussing the fraud, she said. Conspiracy, wire fraud, attempting to sell property without legal authority. We're going to need a formal statement from you. Of course, I replied. Then she added, more quietly, Mr. Briggs, your wife just arrived. She's at the scene now. She's distressed. I looked down the street. There she was, Becky, standing on the lawn we once called ours, hands over her mouth, frozen as agents carry boxes of evidence from the house I built a life in. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Agent Patel said, on what she knew and on what you want. I sat in my truck, watching her for a long time. 13 years of marriage, real years, good ones at the start. I thought about our wedding, about her falling asleep on my shoulder during our first winter together. I thought about how she laughed when she got nervous, about the way she used to greet me in uniform. And then I thought about the forged signature, the gutted accounts, the new man wearing my life like a hand-me-down jacket. What did I want? I want what's right. I said. The federal case moved swiftly. Jeremy Ryan and Daniel Spencer both took plea deals, each turning on the other, and on a ring of co-conspirators spread across 3 states. It had been a full-blown operation, targeting military families, deployed soldiers, vulnerable spouses, fast sales, pocketed equity, destroyed lives. Becky, for her part, claimed ignorance. She told the investigators Jeremy had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her, that the refinance was his idea, that she just went along with it. Maybe it was true. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a civil settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension, a signed confession of forgery. In exchange, I didn't press criminal charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. A no-fault, clean break, all things considered. On the day the final paperwork came through, my phone rang. Agent Patel again. Jeremy Ryan was sentenced today. 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. And Spencer? 12 years. Your case was the one that sealed it. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Thank you. There's something else, she added. We found evidence they did this to 11 other military families. Your case helped expose the pattern. Because of you, they might get their money back. That night, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment, watching the sun dip below the rooftops, and I thought about those families, the other husbands, wives, mothers and fathers who went off to serve, trusting their homes and hearts would be safe, and came back to nothing. I didn't plan to be the man who took down a scam operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes life hands you a mission you didn't volunteer for, and you finish it anyway. A year later, I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts, too much betrayal soaked into the walls. I bought a small cabin outside Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a quiet creek winding through the trees. No neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Army. 20 years was enough. I'd given all I had to give. Got a dog, German Shepherd, named him Scout. Started doing carpentry for locals. Nothing fancy. Fixing fences, building porches. I didn't hate her anymore. Didn't feel much at all, to be honest. She made her choices, and so did I. One evening, I got a letter. Return address, Fort Worth, Texas. It was from a woman I'd never met. Her husband was in the Navy, deployed when Jeremy and Spencer tried to run the same scam on her. The FBI gave me your name, the letter read. You don't know me, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away. I read it twice. Then I pinned it to the refrigerator. Some days, when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp, I'd look at that letter, and I'd remember something good came from all of this. Last I heard, Jeremy was still in prison. Spencer, too. The system had worked for once. As for me, I was finding my way forward, one quiet day at a time. Not chasing justice anymore. Just peace, and building something no one could forge, or steal, or lie their way into. Something that was finally, completely, irrevocably mine. Epilogue. The quiet beyond. It's funny how the loudest pain eventually fades into silence. Not because you forget, not because you forgive, but because the heart can only bleed for so long before it begins to beat differently. Some days in the cabin, I wake before dawn, not from nightmares, not from duty, but because the stillness calls me. The birds stir, the trees shift with the wind, and the creek murmurs like a gentle voice I never knew I needed. Scout usually beats me to the porch, tail wagging, ears alert. He doesn't care about the past, doesn't know anything about war zones or broken vows or forged signatures. He just knows I'm his. That kind of loyalty doesn't ask for explanations. It just shows up. I never remarried. People ask if I ever dated again. I did, a little. Shared coffee, conversations, laughed with strangers who didn't know the weight I carried. But I never invited anyone back into the fortress I'd rebuilt stone by stone. Maybe someday, maybe not. Because I learned something out there, in the desert, in the courtroom of my own soul. Love is not just about what you give, it's about what you protect. And I'm done letting the wrong people into sacred places. Sometimes, I visit Spokane. Not often, but enough to keep ghosts from pretending they've won. I'll drive past the old house, now painted a soft gray, new family living there, a tricycle in the front yard, a swing set in the back, and I feel nothing. Not bitterness, not longing, just distance. Like a mountain you once climbed, now seen from far below. I've made peace with it. The Army taught me a lot about precision, about courage, about finishing what you start. But life taught me the rest. It taught me that silence is a weapon and a shield, that preparation is love in armor, that heartbreak doesn't end you, it chisels you into something harder, sharper, truer, and sometimes softer. There's a Bible verse I used to hear as a kid. Never thought much of it back then. But lately, it comes back to me on long walks in the woods. What was meant for harm, God used for good. I'm not a preacher. I've seen too much for blind faith. But I believe in redemption. I believe in second chances when they're earned. And I believe that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a man alone in the forest, with no one to answer to, and nothing left to prove. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been through your own kind of war. Maybe not with bullets and dust, but with betrayal, loneliness, fear. Let me say this, you're not broken. You're reforged, stronger at the cracks, quieter in your strength. And you will rise, not because you forgot what happened, but because you remembered who you are. So build your life like a fortress, stone by stone. Protect what matters, and let no one steal the peace you've earned. This is Nathan Briggs, and this time, I'm not fighting a war. I'm living a life, one quiet day at a time.